Governor, this morning you said you were going to activate the National Guard due to the situation last night in Providence. I've already heard from quite a few Rhode Islanders who wonder why you didn't do that yesterday. We reporters were aware of looting plans circulating on social media, even if they weren't being publicized at first. Do you regret that you didn't act sooner?
No. So, listen, it's a difficult decision. The state police and the National Guard constantly are monitoring. They saw everything you saw and then some. It's a difficult call. You can't send in the National Guard every time you get a tip on social media that there might be a gathering. We were prepared. The state police had 60 troopers at the mall last night. The Providence police had a strong police presence. At midnight, it was, or 11:30, it was a relatively calm situation, and it was well policed, and then it quickly got out of control. I actually have a different view. They have arrested 70 people out of a couple hundred agitators. If you compare that to, say, what happened in Boston, that is very successful because of the fact that we were prepared, because of the fact that the state police and the Providence police were so professional. They were able to contain what could have been an utter catastrophe. I did have General Callahan there. He was there side by side with Colonel Manny all night. I was on the phone with them all night. We called Governor Baker. We called in Massachusetts. The Massachusetts State Police came in here. Massachusetts sent a helicopter. I would say, but for the courageous and professional action of the state police and the Providence police, and by the way, other police came in from other municipalities, you would have seen a much, much worse situation. They came here to blow up the Providence Place Mall. They came here to torch the State House. They came here to absolutely destroy most of the city of Providence, and that didn't happen because we were prepared. And I will say we will continue to be prepared. So look, I've asked myself that. Of course I've asked myself that. But I rely on guidance of the professionals who are law enforcement professionals who work for me. We were in touch constantly, and it was their professional advice, which I support, to not call in the Guard last night.
One other question on the Guard, and I'll give it over to the other reporters. You've been relying on the Guard heavily for COVID response. You activated them a while back on that. Now you're also relying on them to deal with the unrest we're seeing. First, are you worried about a strain on the Guard personnel? And also, how are you balancing the way I would assume Dr. Alexander Scott still needs them for some of the duties they've had on COVID, but now you need them for this law enforcement aspect too?
Yeah, it's a great question. Am I worried? I'm not worried. We still have plenty of capacity, and these are professionals. I will say, my 6 years as governor, I have had the opportunity to work side by side with many of the members of the Guard, and they are, to a person, unbelievable. Like, these are real professionals. By the way, they're Rhode Islanders. These are teachers, police officers, IT professionals in Rhode Island. They do this because they love the country, but they love our state. So, no, I'm not worried. They are ready to serve. They are professional, and we have plenty of them. So I will be, right now, they're working on a plan, which they'll present to me later today, but we're prepared to deploy hundreds of additional Guard to meet the needs of the civil unrest, in addition to the 700 or 800 that we already have in the COVID response. But the short answer is we have them. I mean, we have the capacity, they're ready to serve, and General Callahan is just an amazing leader.
Callahan hasn't expressed any concerns about strain on the Guard?
Quite the opposite. Like I said, he was there all night, side by side with Colonel Manny. And no, quite the opposite. Like, look, these things were all difficult calls. These are all judgment calls. And no, he kept saying, what do you need? What more can we do? We have the team. We have the professionals. By the way, when I roll out later our plans, I mean, they have specially trained units within our Guard to help us deal with this kind of security, to guard our critical infrastructure, while the police, state police and city police, handle the attacks.
Governor, should the people of Rhode Island feel safe? If they were prepared last night, and now there's rumors that Garden City tonight will work Mall, if that was an example of being prepared, I mean, they essentially destroyed downtown Providence last night.
Not true, but continue, sorry.
You know, we've talked about and hearing the past few months about staying safe, but there's huge fear right now out around the state that this is coming to them next.
Yeah. So let me say this. It is exactly for that reason that I have activated the Guard, and we are going to significantly enhance our security presence throughout the state. Because I feel that. I hear that. I feel that. I will reiterate what I just said to Ted. I mean, yes, there was looting and there was damage, but it was because they were ready that they massively limited how bad it could have been. And you didn't see here what has happened in other places around the country in terms of more violence, more deaths, more injuries. And the fact that they were able to arrest 70 people is evidence to their great work. But having said that, we are not going to let our guard down. We are not going to let our guard down. We know that there's likely to be a big demonstration on Friday. So in the days between now and then, we're going to amp it up. We're going to increase our security presence. We're going to add hundreds of guards, men and women, to our effort. And we were on high alert, and now we're on even higher alert for exactly what you say. I'm going to do whatever it takes to keep Rhode Island safe. And if that means increasing our presence, that's what we're going to do.
Now, 24 hours ago, you said the protest on Saturday made you proud to be a Rhode Islander. 60 of the 70 arrested are from the state. Are you ashamed of those people, what they did to the state last night?
Yes. So let me say this. I'm still proud of what happened over the weekend. There were 1,000 or more people peacefully protesting, wearing their masks, expressing their outrage. And I support that. What happened last night was not that. And whether they were people who drove in from out of state, which we do know happened, to agitate some of the people here, or whether they are people who live here, what they did was wrong, flat out wrong. I don't care if you lived in Providence and you threw a brick at somebody, or you came in from out of town and you did it. Absolutely ashamed. I'm ashamed, I'm angry, I'm frustrated, and most of all, I'm determined to hold them accountable. Because that wasn't a protest. They weren't even pretending to protest. They showed up in the middle of the night angry with crowbars and flares and buckets of gasoline with one purpose: to set our city on fire and hurt people. Am I ashamed? Yes.
And I just want to clarify, it was Commissioner Perry that said that they were overwhelmed. That's why I said, when we talk about prepare for the worst, hope for the best, when he said, again this morning, it was Commissioner Perry said we're overwhelmed, that doesn't sound like they were fully prepared. That's why I said that.
Look, I think both are true. I would say both are true. Like I said, there were 60 state police and dozens of Providence police. It was under control until it wasn't. You know, I got the call, I think it was about 1 in the morning, and it got out of control quickly. And I think if that's what he said, I think he's right. My only...
Down there, Governor?
At midnight? No.
Yeah.
No. I thought I was best served at home providing support and guidance.
Governor, do you suspect that there are a lot more people who are out there, from what you've heard, who are intending to do harm and kind of take advantage of the current situation? Is that your indication, or do you think this is still a relatively small group?
It's hard to say. I would say that they're monitoring it constantly, and I don't know. It's very hard to say. Back to Ted's point, it's hard to know. It is hard to know what are legitimate threats versus what would be small. So we are assuming, based upon, what you're seeing all around the country, that there could be more, and we are just going to increase our response.
To what extent do you think, or do you, you've tied to, and others have, the stress on society of coronavirus to now this combination of civil unrest and the protests related to George Floyd. Is there any argument that you should consider lifting restrictions sooner? Because we're not, people have said there's other costs to responding to coronavirus aggressively. I mean, so there's not much of a pressure cooker?
I don't know. The honest answer is we don't know. We don't know. We're still trying to figure out exactly who this group was, who's behind them, what their motivations were. I am not yet willing. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, it is certainly true that everybody is, more stressed out and angry because we've been stuck in our houses and not working. Having said that, this attack, which is what it was, it has a different feel, and I don't think we know yet whether it's at all related to what we're seeing.
We're starting to see some of the images, or I've seen a few images come in on Twitter of the arraignments that are taking place right now. These are babies. These are like 18-year-old kids. They all appear to be white. Looks like completely different demographic than what the rally looked like on Saturday. I sort of asked you this like an hour and a half ago, but if you could just sort of, once again, just clarify that there's a major difference, at least you believe there's a major difference between what happened on Saturday, what happened last night, and what the preparation for each of those scenarios would look like. Would they be similar? In other words, a peaceful rally, would that now be met with armed riot gear police or the National Guard? Are they preparing for your standard issue Black Lives Matter protests?
Yeah. So I think there's no relation between the two. So we are still trying to understand exactly who was behind last night's attack. But I can't say it enough times. It was not a protest. It wasn't. This was not a protest that went bad. In fact, as I was reading the news reports through the night, it was reported as a protest that went bad. It was not a protest that went bad. This was a coordinated criminal attack on the people of Rhode Island. And we are, the state police, working with federal officials, working with Massachusetts, are trying to get to the bottom of exactly who they are and what we need to do to meet them, to meet that challenge. Unrelatedly, you have a lot of people who showed up at the State House, Black Lives Matter, who are angry. And I understand that. But what happened last night wasn't a group of protesters who got so angry that they got out of control and became violent. It was a group of people led and funded by someone or some group who came here with the explicit purpose of wreaking havoc. Not a protest. Doesn't resemble a protest, not like a protest.
So many of the arrests are Rhode Islanders.
True. But there were also many people from out of state who were agitating, organizing, and were involved.
Governor, what did you mean by funded?
There were hundreds of people.
Governor, what did you mean by funded? You said they were funded by some entity?
I don't know. As I said, I don't know. But what we do know is this is an organized effort. You're seeing it all around the country.
To share how you will deploy the National Guard?
Yes. Today, I'm thinking I have a meeting later this afternoon, maybe 5:30, 6 o'clock. I'll give more press around what more we're going to do. We're looking at a curfew. We're looking at exactly how many guard we need to deploy. We're looking at working more closely with Massachusetts. This is going to consume us for a while. But to John's point, if you're at home and you live in, I don't know, Cranston, Johnston, Warwick, wherever, and you say, I'm afraid, I want you to not be afraid. We are going to do what it takes to keep you safe. I can't necessarily prevent bad things from happening, because they may. We are in an unprecedented period of unrest in this country right now. But I will assure you that we will be ready. We will spare no resource, whether that be the state police, local police, state resources, National Guard, federal backup, Massachusetts backup. We will spare no resource. We will be vigilant, and we will keep Rhode Islanders safe. And that's the message that I want people to hear.
Governor, you said yesterday morning that one of the big threats is hopelessness and despair. And does the assumption or inference that this is led by outside agitators or organized groups somewhat contradict the possibility, at least, that these people, rioters, violent rioters, are acting because of spontaneous motivations of hopelessness and despair that are, at least in part, tied to, the worst economic crisis since the 1930s and the worst public health crisis since the 1910s?
I cannot speculate as to why these people resorted to violence. I know it was wrong, I know it's illegal, and I know they'll be held accountable, and I know if they try it again, they will absolutely be held accountable. And I'm not going to speculate as to why they did it. I will say, which is what I said yesterday, that when as to the issue of racism, if you are a person of color in America, and you see year after year, after decade, persistent inequality, persistent discrimination, persistent racism, persistent inequality in wages, in education, in access to health care, you get angry, as you should. And one way you can express that anger is by taking action to bring about change. But after a while, some people do begin to lose hope. And so that's my point was, and particularly when you add on to that what we're living, God forbid if someone in your family got COVID, or your mom's in a nursing home and passed away of COVID, or your husband's out of a job for 3 months because of COVID, it's easy to lose hope. And my only point was, I'm asking people not to do that. I'm asking people to rise above that and summon the courage and hope to keep fighting the fight. Clearly there's more work to be done. We have individual and systemic racism among us, so keep fighting the fight until we win. But not with violence.
Governor, do you expect more arrests to come from this? Just because they're so brazen, there are videos online, and as I check the arrest list, a lot of the people on Facebook, they're not even been arrested. Is this ongoing?
It's an ongoing investigation.
Dr. Alexander Scott, we are also getting a lot of COVID questions related to all this, which is, you had a big gathering at the protest, the peaceful protest. Now you have people all through the night together. I guess, how long will you be watching? When would we know if we're out of the woods and this didn't cause an outbreak versus when, what's the time frame you're going to be watching to see if the secondary effects of all this is a COVID outbreak or surge or something?
We're always vigilant about seeing what types of outcomes will happen. A lot of work went into making this phase 2 reopening as safe as possible so that people had the guidance about distancing and wearing a mask. We will learn how we did with that, how Rhode Islanders are doing with following that guidance, and what happens with the results. It will be challenging to tell if we were to have an increase in cases. Is it just because of the protests, or is it because of the reopening? But we want to be vigilant regardless for as long as we need to, and continue to make sure people have the information they need, are aware of the risks that are there. The closer you are together without a mask for a longer period of time, particularly indoors, the more dangerous it is, so that they can make the decisions to stay healthy, keep themselves safe, and, as the governor just said, also raise their voices against what they want to protest about or make clear that we do need to address together, as we've talked about how racism, some of the structural inequities contribute to the frustrations that people are feeling and the outcomes that are occurring with COVID-19. We do want to say whether it's being more out and about because of phase 2, or if you've participated in a peaceful protest that brings the attention that's needed, continue to pay close attention to yourself. If you have symptoms, get tested. We want to make sure that the ability to keep safe, to decrease the risk of transmitting COVID, all of those opportunities are still there, and we'll continue to promote that and make it available for people while also addressing those systemic causes so that the next time around we don't have the types of inequities and frustrations that people are feeling. So there's work to do. Sure.
So the quick answer is, 14 to 21 days. If this is happening, right, in 2 to 3 weeks, we'll see. As the doctor just said, it's going to be a challenge because we're doing different things at once, right? We're reopening retail, haircutters, et cetera, and dealing with these mass gatherings. So it'll be hard to know if we see an outbreak in a few weeks, which was it due to, phase 2 or this. To that point, we are now assessing what, if anything, we might do to make the the appropriate protests safer. Passing out masks, figuring out a way to do testing, figuring out a way to do contact tracing for the law-abiding folks who are protesting, gently enforcing social distancing. So this is what we are, figuring out right now. What I would say to the people of Rhode Island, if you want to attend a peaceful protest, wear your mask, don't go if you're sick, and turn on your location diary if you crush COVID, and keep your contact tracing notebook. Like, if you really are a law-abiding Rhode Islander who says, I have to speak out, well, God bless you. Then figure out who you're going with, keep your crowd small, keep 6 feet away, and use your contact tracing notebook. So that if, God forbid, we see an outbreak and we have to do rapid contact tracing, we're able to, deal with it.
Have you considered offering testing at public gatherings and
we're looking at all ways, but that's not that helpful because it takes a while for the disease to incubate.
Thank you. Doctor, you said next time around. Are you anticipating a resurgence, or is that just sort of general for the next public health crisis?
We want to be ready for either one. We definitely hope that there is not a resurgence, but need to be vigilant, make sure that we have the precautions in place.